You this afternoon to a public talk by His Holiness Khenpo Jigme Phuntsok. His Holiness was born in 1933 in northeastern Tibet. About 10 years ago, he began actively teaching in Tibet after several decades of decline in the Buddhist teachings there. He is responsible for greatly increasing the spread of Buddhism in that part of Tibet, and has brought many tens of thousands of Tibetans and even a few Chinese into the Buddha Dharma during that time. We are extremely fortunate to have him. It was through what was virtually a series of miraculous logistical sequences that had happened, many of which should never have occurred. Telephone connections that are still not understood. He managed to get his visa and his permission to leave China, and we are extremely fortunate to have him with us here in Nova Scotia. His addition of his trip to Nova Scotia was very much last minute, so we were a little bit scurrying about, but we are very, very pleased to have him and honored, and I would like to request His Holiness to teach us this afternoon. Thank you.
Now the subject today I'd like to speak a little bit today about the tradition of Buddhism and the types of practices that are employed in daily life which are in accordance with the Buddhist tradition. Is the mic?
Haya tinana 다 다리가 잠깐 하장 가려서 kirwazgin bari shi gubarit.
We should all recognize that we all are experiencing a state of great fortune.
Tiang kara chetar jang zangna tar kier ka forkin zangla tar kiverit.
The reason for this is, first of all, that we are born in this world of ours called Zambuling.
Teni zangla tiang na ta khund phonsum choba yimba gimsan tiang na frena ta khel lim phak bo da no walang shota piang drama nyen jibala so ba mi ya mo go kiretan te changmala ta long shota derkit na khabar phonsum soba yokyang ta tambi chuji bi kara me pi fiena na ta te da khabar tan phaba yimba shi gubar.
And the reason that this world of ours, which is actually the southern continent called Zambuling, the reason that this world of ours called Zambuling, which is the southern continent, is so fully endowed is because if we examine the way that life is carried out in the other continents, to the east, to the west, and to the north, although there is human life on those continents, and there are endowments and there are pleasurable experiences, it is impossible for any of those human beings to meet with the Buddha Dharma or practice the Buddha Dharma. It simply does not exist there.
Teni tan zawa lang dur teni miliran boshi tobate ana hajang niper kawada nipate ana karazon chukti kirazgin ber shi gubari.
So then in this world of ours, the southern continent, again called Zambuling, it is also very difficult to actually obtain a precious human rebirth, to be reborn as a human being in a situation with all of the endowments and states of freedom. And so if that situation has been obtained, it is considered to be extremely precious and extremely excellent.
Tiana zoom nyarvada yetagda tandro ta lama in la sokbeni se kiver kenna na ta dingar yang zot mepa dana masa pa jangana ta tambi chula shu kombi long ka ya me piena hajang khand ta chapa jik denere.
Because if one were actually reborn in the hell realm, the hungry spirit realm, the animal realm, the Titan realm, or the Deva realm, the suffering that must be endured there is absolutely unbearable. So much so that there is absolutely no opportunity to practice the Dharma.
Tinana ta hai yeri fiawa khand ngom sarwadang derkit pansum chobazig da yodnere tana ta delat kinayana tenizon te tak da wagmet pam bajik kayana ta chuti bi kare me bi fiena tiyana me topandin shuk zaya teniwa mari.
And even if one is reborn in a God's realm, in the realms of gods, although these are marvelous places, fully endowed with pleasures and everything is very wondrous, still, because one is so consumed with the pleasure of the experience, then one never has any opportunity to practice Dharma, because one is not inclined to do so. And so the spiritual path remains unpracticed.
He mazapa jangana ta sanji song when susur tarvada fianchip sefada hingi chudere nambaksim shadodri that the samazip na melindi lirtendi tangana dribna yan driban dribi karana yobari then hala soban roa janlana lirtendi tangana lam chatsang drib tabkemari dribi karana yokimari tipshena yan meliden yeberkari.
In that, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni presented the three categories of teachings in this world, the teachings on the Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva, and the mantra in those three categories, or vehicles. Anyone who has a precious human rebirth, who is able to connect with these teachings, has the opportunity to accomplish them in their entirety, if they so desire. But if someone is reborn as a god, in the gods' realms, for instance, they would not have the opportunity to practice any of these teachings. It's not something that would occur for them. And so therefore, more than rebirth as a god, a human rebirth is absolutely sublime, and it's something very difficult to obtain.
Dinner stone baptism dandy. That Jim John that Chiba Tam Chetkana, Harry Labby Lizer Kiron, that chet of Napjut that's a day a million bochiri. That around in Alan, the Toyo Patilla or Gapro, Capitan Kid Gubari.
And so it is always considered by those who follow the Buddha, the followers of the Buddha's teachings, that the human rebirth is something that is more sublime than even birth as a god. And in context of that, the precious human rebirth, with its freedoms and endowments, is the most difficult rebirth to obtain. And once it is obtained, then we should always feel a sense of true joy and gratitude.
Denny? In
addition to that, it is very, very rare to be born at a time when the Buddha has come into this world. A period of time, which is a time that the Buddha has come into the world, is called a fortunate aeon. And that fortunate aeon is termed such because it refers to a time that the Buddha was present in the world, that his presence is known. Whereas a time when his presence is unknown in the world is called a dark aeon.
Dinana, that men be Karaza getting the young the trunk was them joined. Then you drone me Karan, that Sanjin in the Shombi Karas, on the that ringa sounds marked on Mum Jongi, Hajan Kumos at the end.
As for these two aeons of time, the dark aeons are very abundant. There are multitudes of them in terms of time. But the light aeons, the time when the Buddha comes and the lamp of the Buddha's presence is in this world, these are only sort of interspersed in between an abundance of dark periods of time. And so therefore, it is also considered to be rare.
This Sanjin in the Shumba, the test of Nipperkawaj can be Jimson Diana. Then Joan Namna, then is on the Tambachu Yamsil and be Karas on Trinkins or be Tisote, Hajan Kun was in the Sanjim of Yonari.
And this is why it is considered by Buddhists that to be born in a time when the Buddha has come into the world is also very rare and very precious, let alone having the opportunity to connect with his teachings and actually put them into practice.
That Sanjin in the Shumber Kirjana, that Sanji the Chusong, Chusoni Masana, that Chuti, now at the Mana Pardayopatiana, Hajanga the Nipperkava and Karazon Yanari.
So then, assuming we have the great fortune of the Buddha's presence in the world, if the Buddha came and didn't teach the Dharma, then again it might not be as fortunate, but in fact, of course, he did teach the Dharma. Not only that, if the Dharma had already vanished from this world, that would be a certain situation, which it is not. The Dharma is still present in this world.
Rebirth last what that Mao Corona, then is on the Tampadiana, that Nivian began by then, Hajan Gafrufia was Kirvajri.
Not only did the Buddha teach the Dharma, but he turned the wheel of the Dharma teachings on 3 great occasions. And all of those teachings are still very much present in this world. They remain stable in this world. And so because of the presence of the Buddha's doctrine, and as something that we can connect with, we should understand how rare it is, and we should feel a sense of true joy and gratitude.
God, Dangi Chundazo, Tango, Zinana, Sanjin Jistin, the Shun, the Chustamani Odrit, Sanjika Karte Chusong, Tamba Nisas and Yana, that the Ton de Manor Tonbi, that Lama give him them Ted go and remarked on Mana, that Lamada Mamtretna, around the Sanjika Son Samanyamsil and be Tap Shibamari.
However, once again, in that the teachings are present, if we don't meet with a qualified spiritual mentor, a lama, a spiritual teacher who can explain these teachings to us, then we wouldn't understand how to really connect with them and how to practice. So we also must have the auspicious coincidence of meeting with a true spiritual guide, for if we don't, again, we don't have the same state of good fortune. And it is also even more rare to, let's say, meet with a Lama, receive the teachings of the Buddha from the Lama, but then to actually be inspired to practice those teachings. Therefore, all of us should think about it. When I mention how rare and precious our opportunity is, which is fully endowed, it refers to what I just mentioned, that we are born in this southern continent, Zambuling, the best of all places to be born, in a precious human rebirth, that we are born at a time that the Buddha has come into the world. We are born at a time that the Buddha not only came into the world, but gave the Dharma teachings. We're born at a time that the Dharma teachings have not vanished from the world. They're still with us. And we're also able to meet with kind and compassionate spiritual mentors who introduce us to the teachings, who are willing to teach us. And so therefore, our situation right now is like the blooming of a udamwara flower, which is something that blooms just once in an aeon, which is exceedingly rare to see, and that is likened to our present state of rebirth. So therefore we should experience, or we should sort of give rise to, a strong sense of joy and gratitude. With this type of fully endowed situation, where everything is so conducive, first and foremost then, we must go ahead and try to develop very deep faith. If we were to look at faith in terms of distinctions or levels of faith, usually it is considered that faith is developed in three ways, on three levels. First of all, a faith which is like an attraction, a faith that is based on being attracted. The second level of faith becomes a faith which wishes to emulate. And finally, the third level of faith is what is called the fully convinced experience of faith, which is irreversible. And these three types of faith are actually applied to the three jewels of refuge in the following way. The faith, which is faith based on strong attraction, is a way that we would feel towards the Buddha, the first jewel of refuge. And a faith of wishing to emulate or become like is how we should feel towards the Dharma, the second jewel of refuge. And the fully convinced faith is how we should feel towards the Sangha, the third jewel of refuge. Looking back at the first, this faith that is based on attraction, which is considered to be pure faith, because it just simply spontaneously occurs. It occurs when you think about the Buddha. It would be a feeling of when you think about the Buddha that you feel tremendous joy and happiness and attraction.
다 마오식 또 쇼미온데 때 간다야 만자비 좀든 디테일하나 다 요는 맞도 쇼아이긴 비 김살라 때는 좀든 디테일하가 기구바리.
Now the reason that this type of pure faith, which is a faith of being attracted to an object of refuge, would arise, is because the Buddha is really unlike any other great teacher who has come into this world. His qualities are unequaled, in that many great teachers, many great gods, are in this world as objects of refuge, such as Indra and Brahman and so forth. Their qualities cannot be compared to the noble qualities of the Enlightened One, Lord Buddha.
Tenina that jumden dite tetakda manjavi yonden jerta yigo tenana When Salani Bishanju Sangha Chimbo you can have Jodna, Jumden Digi Yonden Kawadian, Lum Bumchak Mahubat, Jodna, Jumden Digi Yonden, Chatsawan San Yamari.
If one were to try to express the noble qualities of Lord Buddha, and when I say they're unequaled, I mean, for instance, if you were to try to compare the qualities of a bodhisattva who is on a high level, one of the higher bodhisattva bhumis or stages of development, even if you were to praise those qualities for hundreds and thousands of years, it wouldn't even come close to being able to express even a portion of the Buddha's qualities, which are so far surpassed.
They yopat sama mahijana. Ta rari namla niverum koa ngirchaka metmarum chumnandiga yondan shi gubari.
So bearing in mind how the Buddha's noble qualities are actually something that we cannot measure, we cannot imagine, we must come to have some kind of an understanding of what they are. It's something that we also must become aware of.
Tatani Rari Nalam Yerum Koyondan the Kaina, Tangar Chakat Samba, a Nikabna, Adam Mif de Phuntsok Soba, Rebirth be Tapshinas. Tartik Dana, they Yondan Tatak Soba, Sanji Komalan Gutbi, Tam Chaniji Kala Yodan Tela, Tan Suchum and the Yondan Tamjikum Shok the Yarangacha and Koju with the Tiri, Tirta Yondan the day Yopa the shit gone.
At least we must have some knowledge of the noble qualities so that in our minds we are able to reach a state or a commitment whereby we have every intention to not just achieve a temporary state of happiness by taking rebirth as a god or a human, but to be able to achieve an absolute state of permanent happiness by achieving enlightenment or liberation or the state or status of Buddhahood with all of the miraculous abilities that are a part of that experience. And so this is something that we must aspire towards, and so we must know at least something about the noble qualities so that we can have that type of aspiration or strong commitment.
When the Jumdan Dilam, Yondan Mamoji got to Zanga. Around in the Pamba Midna, that de la Jangajan Trosa Jigot the Mari. When the Jitinga Kamder, there Gerwo, one chiva, chicken the Mamos Waka. That around in the Pamba Midna, de la Gafto Jiguduri. Gerwo Kanji, round in Nalana, that Pamba Yopi Gerwo Tilan, Tapper Gagubertavari. Tina Jumdan the Yondan Tian, around in Namla Pambi Chatina, never the Shigubarit.
Now the reason for this is because if we know about the qualities of the Buddha, then if we feel that they're not something that will be of benefit to us, then there's no reason to feel a sense of attraction or joy towards wanting to achieve that state. On the other hand, like for example, if we wanted to become a king or a ruler, if this was a status that we were attracted to achieving ourselves, yet if it was something that could bring us no benefit, then there would be no reason for achieving that state. And so we have to think about what the benefits are if we are able to achieve that same state or that same status. And it needs to be something that can be of benefit, of true benefit to self and others. And in order to know that, we have to know what the qualities are, but at the same time, we must be able to look ahead and see what the benefits are of those qualities.
Then Jumdan tar never Kovi. Yonan the Kanjana, Tam can be on that, saving on that, Nibi on that, and Kensing on that, some your body.
Now, of all of the many qualities of the Buddha, they can be condensed into the three categories of omniscience, altruism or loving kindness, and power or potency.
Diana, that Jumdan digger, Taipi Simjan Tamchet, Deva and Gopi Tapta, or Dinger Lifton Tapte, Machina. That is on the Jumdan dig Simjan la Pump of Dipta Gumartan. Jumdan dini Shifia Tamchet Mali per can be done chance at the end.
In terms of omniscience, which is also wisdom knowledge, the mind of the Buddha is a mind which understands how to place all sentient beings, as limitless as space itself, in the status of permanent peace and happiness, and knows precisely how to employ the methods to see to the liberation of all beings from their different types of suffering. And so this is the type of benefit that is derived from achieving that same state of awareness. And this is in context of the wisdom quality, or this quality of omniscience, of absolutely knowing how to set sentient beings free from suffering and place them in permanent happiness.
Dinana, that Jumdan Dilam can be on the Sadme by Yota Zengana. That's Sivi on the Jogorim, Sivi on the Mina, Adershana Pantobi Tawad Mari. Quirnana, that musica, arranging Shun Sanji Machaba Chanzina, that Jan Lap Samban Hojan. Jora submojan, take something China, take Jala Pampa 7, you drifted Kamar, take Shana, saving on the Yod Gubari.
But in addition to that, the Buddha also has so many noble qualities which are the result of the development of perfect altruism mentioned in the three. And so this quality of loving kindness or compassion is absolutely essential as well. You can't just have omniscience or wisdom without compassion, otherwise still there will be no true benefit, and the methods employed cannot be of true benefit. For instance, even an ordinary person, even though they may be very learned, if they have a rough character, then they really can't be of very much benefit to others, because they're always putting others off, and so people would not be interested to listen to them. Even though they may know a lot, if their character is rough and offensive, they're of no benefit. And so loving kindness and compassion must also be present.
Dina Jumdan the Sivat Chirtawa Yigotena, when a Vixibili may be mad. We will have Sivali, Ganger, Tonjer the Labina, and there's another Sivat, Jumdan the ordinary.
So if we were to think about the kind of loving kindness and compassion that the Buddha possesses, or the mind of the Buddha experiences, then we use the example of the love that a mother has for her only child and multiply that by hundreds and thousands of times. And this is the type of love that the Buddha has for all living beings.
That Jumdan Digana, Nova Lamir Nirkaptan, Jumdan the Number Zobar Sagi Bitikap, that Tamchet Diana, then is on the Rang leader, Trulay on Martava, same Jangaton the River Fiedneri.
How is it that the Buddha was able to develop this level of loving kindness and compassion? It occurred at the time that he himself was training on the path to become enlightened. As a practitioner, during that time, he always trained in the practice of being of benefit to others and cherishing others more than himself. And at the time of his enlightenment, because this was always his practice and aspiration, he was enlightened in the state of awareness of totally loving and cherishing others more than oneself.
일과라나서 장정롱와 르덕이낙서는 다 좀된디가 심전라 판바다 대em종 회드는 공고 워대야나 다 멈쩍 마오나 대빈박당와 인지 좀된디랑이 이야기
Outkinanglasana. Outkinangla bumtrakare. Jema outkinangla.
아.
Listen. To give you an example of how it is that the Buddha dedicated his life to others and would give up his body time and time again in his pursuit to develop this level of compassion, even after he was enlightened, when he then went to Varanasi, to the famous deer park, where he gave his first Dharma discourse, which is known as the first turning of the Dharma wheel. At that time, in order to express his compassion for the benefit of others as well, there were Bumtrak Mompo Driksang. He actually took off his own head, removed his head in front of many hundreds of thousands.
좀된디가 다 심정의 돈도 그쪽 돈지 때 와라나시 이렇게하리지네 대양마리 대양한다서 그나 자왕랑 그 사적 잔당 잔 자왕랑리 잔비나 다 이렇게 근도는 좀된디가 대 그쪽 대 심정의 돈란 멍우 왔다나 대다 임박당 오바리.
And there are many, many occasions, not only just in Varanasi, but in many other places in the world, where the Buddha gave his body, gave parts of his body, gave the blood from his body for the benefit of other beings, just simply exchanging himself for the sake of benefiting others.
Then, that Jumden you say that that Fiorijan, when Teni Ranga, Tanisa, Sarsa. Tenim tansa, jomdan diler gavadan kibet tamçada fseniz. Jellam fseniz. Tir tabi jinan, tam şogri çendetan. Jomdan dik seveteyan, tir tabi şoksam açet bazgiri.
However, it was never a case where the Buddha would express loving kindness towards those who he was close to, such as his relatives or those disciples of his who were already attracted to him, and not show loving kindness to others. On no occasion was this type of biased conduct ever displayed by the Buddha.
Deyan çerterin jena, tap jomdan de musib jibiti sana, ayıp şokni liğman vur javşengi, zanzan korşiki, skılila tak inet kırgoni çift şavada. Oyun şokni nif zamban anpi goni, udal livşengam songinden balağını, jomdan dilanı ter nigalağını, ta tık sevela keber mi par, ta nigayağını te panba devalan gobur kepi dağın içen zınları.
You choke me, son. You choke.
Good, Lisa.
Right hand. Offering
to the gods.
By the gods. Usually do karma. Nothing. Energy is harmony.
Yen choke.
From his lips and things. Then do karma. Do karma. This demon. He's trying to harm me. Buddha. So this harmony and the offering is all them from him as an equal loving way. One is offering him, one is harming him. But for Buddha himself, these two of them equally loving compassion. They don't even
What is he offering him? The Buddha's offering his right hand.
Offering water from drinking other things, preaching.
For example, there was one occasion where there were two gods who were confronting the Buddha, and one was making offerings to the Buddha and expressing offerings and devotion, and the other god was a demonic king who was trying to harm the Buddha. And on that occasion, he dealt with both of them equally and displayed loving kindness and compassion towards both of them impartially.
다 링 토바다 롱시 체위 간서 남래 세와 요니 딱 멤버 탐jel래 세메드스 그나 티스베테 하는 fik스노 와지랬다 대자 마인 발 좀된 디그 세베테는 담 토발리가 맨발 냠탁 비심젠남라 다 락바 틱세비당이 찬지겠네리.
And also, it was never a case where the Buddha's loving kindness and compassion was greater for those who were in higher positions or had more endowments, and was less for those who were weak or poor or meager. Never was there an occasion where the Buddha showed this type of partial experience of loving kindness. In fact, it was just the opposite, that more often than not, he was always more kind and showed more compassion and love and concern for those who were in need.
Then Jordan the Sivateana, that Tandiji, chapter in Kantavi, then is on the Sivateana, get one to 7 in the morning.
Chops in case of all this.
Do you say, well, you
His loving compassion is not like in a very small, like those
politicians. So Lord Buddha's loving kindness and compassion was never limited like those who are partial towards their own people and or their own race, such as those politicians.
That's a chapter in the Chimosina, that chapter Jigme Medina. That new Garton Mon and the Tela, Siva and Yot, Timur Gasori and Chimboji to Kedneri. Then is on the Yamtaba, Mary, and Yirit and Yitondana, that is the Gasori and Mashi Pamba and Mashi Pajit Yidneri.
See that these days the leaders, for hundreds for thousands of people, they express their gratitude and happiness. But when they really see as an individual suffering things, then they don't really take care of their own care.
Yes. Because those leaders, those political leaders, usually express their gratitude and their kindness and their appreciation in front of thousands of people when there's some benefit to them. But if they really see a few people who are suffering, they usually don't pay any attention to that.
Then is on the loot on Shirman where the Simja chicken to Berguna, Jumdan the Tigla, QMA Patirtavi, they are saving Yaji, partition was great.
Because the loving kindness and compassion of the Buddha, even if just one sentient being was in need, many times over he could give up his life and his blood again and again for just one single being without ever having any regret. And at the same time, for thousands of years, if the need be, unceasingly, the Buddha would continue to express loving kindness and compassion for those beings who are in need. And his expression of loving kindness and compassion is absolutely unrivaled.
Titazo Kola took Gamara Bazir going. Kong Yigin, Nyarvi, Da, Lincoln Namgan, Kantan Rimberke, Kantap Tagan, Gubari. Division and Kong Yiba, Nigalan, Lincoln, Hajang, Don, yet, Tirta Kepi Nirkam, Natap Chundan Digi Sambala, Tang Naler Dinger Shon, that Trobund there Nibi Tavik, Teoda Samana. Then in Lincoln Chamber, Douglas Onjik. Then he trouble Karandayana, Naxik with Langana, Takanti Tabadi, Nikelap, Nitrikin, Trouble, the Dervika Josi, Jibin Irkana, Nyari Tromate, Tas Yerdan that the Kiram, Nyari, Simjananga, Anangalinuala, Dela Gosha Sajik Zina, Gola Twag, and the Chumdan di Simpuin, some Saxon the Kevilorgi and Yodari.
For example, one time when the Buddha was in the hell realm, and his name was Karma Rupa, and he was plowing in the field with the other beings who were in that experience of the hell phenomena, and undergoing this sort of tremendous torture of laboring there indefinitely. And those messengers of the hell realm were beating them and forcing them to labor unceasingly. And at that time, he had such a thought that if only all of the suffering of the other beings in the hell realm could ripen upon him at this very moment. And then the messenger of hell just smashed him over the head with a hammer, and he fainted. And then after he revived from that, he was reborn on the 33rd God's realm.
Tenina yang matsan tap jumdan diga kitsak chila jumdan dilan randa sada no pa soba den fusion zero tiri tat tela sanop dana hun tat serv ngama nam sa tir tak jumdan di tela no pa baji somneri kitse tela yana no pa baji somneri ta fusion ge chetana ta khong kuchuk la na te manzim bar phanbab de bitsa te si yang germany bartavar te ton zapari
Legend saying do legend do legend saying the Kundi if he lived with his own life, he was always trying to harm Buddha in his own life. Because in the previous world, so many births, and he always tried to harm Buddha.
Did he?
And so even those kind of beings, still he always holds me.
Also, there is one god who is a demonic god, Lachin, who is always trying to harm the Buddha. And even from previous lives, it was historical that there were so many occasions that he was trying to harm the Buddha and bring him some kind of harm and get him to react. But on every occasion, he never showed any adversity or any type of a reaction, and just continued to show him more and more loving kindness and compassion.
Dina jumdan dila tirtavi tam khenpa sevi yondan yot zengya then nibi yondan zdiot gone niba medna tam khense kyawa ka karam khenmar.
So in this way, the Buddha, possessing this unrivaled omniscience and loving kindness and compassion, it is still not complete without power or potency.
Niba medna ta qenna Margan mo mukyam me lakhayam me pi ta gan mo zgaran ga bete chikir sona tela nyarji da samji mekhaba yot zengjana ta ta choteli dirtab na mari devin da ta nibe medna semjen namla nyar zya samji yang pan toba yot na mari.
Like the example of the old woman with no hands who sees her child being carried off by rushing water and has such an experience of inconceivable compassion for the child and can do nothing about it but watch. And so like that, even though one may possess knowledge and this altruism on the level of the Buddha, without power or potency, again, the method is not complete to help sentient beings.
Dina jumda dila nipa chirtawa yugo zenan ta kongur ki nipa da sung nipa da tiki yondan nipati ta nipa na bak su yokiri.
The power, the potency that the Buddha possesses corresponds to his body, to his speech, and to his mind.
Jumdan dida kutila nipa chirtawa yugo nirjina tap jumdan di yerin ziyarwa zamjina then ils ont été pas comme some korbi dingerli toren. The
type of noble qualities and power that the Buddha possesses physically is that just by simply being in his presence, it has the potency to liberate sentient beings from the suffering of cyclic existence, just to meet him, just to be in his presence.
Tap jomden diga yer ongusun thona teta yonda yot zengya ta tarta rangri namana ta teta jomden diga ki yondan daga che gidam joneri jina te am joneri.
So to actually meet with the Buddha, to directly be in his presence, then this is the case. But even now, just to think about his noble qualities, this is also the case.
대양 시스터리 온다 좀된 디게 랑이 자니가 그즈 넘버 마우트 애프터눈 로이 gelab jori tomshedo son 좀된 디게 그즈 대야 르크다 디크 단드라 맨디 그즈 넘버 나즈갑터는 심전 남을 돈 잡을 피했네리
Long good and too good.
제르크
Form of statues and so many forms of things.
And also the Buddha has manifested in so many various ways, not just only in a human embodiment, but also in the form of statues and so forth.
대양 르크다발람 손나야 답 좀된 디게 랑프터 그냥 오창금 쇼트니 나온드라 tek circle asukba sark kank ordork kantaviz ginnada tela fiern sarvadam chobam bervada dar molam de bala asukba finana jumden de ngusib jigbi tazona de fiern chud molam tabadan keber meper tem durde tamshegina sonwandri.
And it is also clearly stated in the sutras that to have devotion to pay homage to make offerings to make prayers to those stupas which contain the relics of the Buddha and those statues that are molded in his likeness, whether they are made of gold or copper or even stone, also brings about the same results as though one were to meet with the Buddha directly.
Tenina ta khena tikta chiglab samutana chumden diga kızıkte ta khendim ziba injanda ta chepa injanda ta tin jaru kanza tamchelana ta pambadan dia samji meche bazim jonjiri
Kundra.
tanka
Oh, listen. For example, even if someone is able to see a tanka, which is a painting which depicts the form of the Buddha, which is extremely pleasing and attractive. Just even to meet with that form of the Buddha is something that alone has the power to bring the benefit of imbuing the mind with peace and happiness.
대안에 답 정된 디가 그즈르테 라나 답바당 기비 건 jarnana 답선음 samji meche bayopa mumagu baritan denizonti sim ta yerdan da çivjendim cümden di kızgılar taji canzıgınadan tim sonum gırtop kıyana yeni rangoyla martiber namjina sanji koma toberin gerwa yana dem durde namı sarı sonwadir
Shedrang, Anna.
Is it that if
Dihakas and Dhamma, Shedrang?
even the condition to go from Shaitan still none of it is proposed that you will reach the enlightenment from after.
Just by meeting it anyway. So, if one actually is able to see a form of the Buddha and have strong faith and devotion towards that form, not just only acknowledging its beauty and feeling attracted to it, but having faith and devotion, then needless to say how much merit is accumulated from that. Even if one sees a form of the Buddha and becomes angry, it is still taught in the sutras. It clearly states that just by the merit of coming in contact with the form of the Buddha, after a very long time, eventually one will receive the benefits.
Tani cümden diga tak songu yondan samlop tanayana cümden digi tak ngono ngusub jikbi tatsop cümden digi son tubagam yana tartin irkabinan dag cümden dila tabatse jikk sorap tavana cümden digi jer ngusun jarna tani zon tede tar nawa nyamna lan jarna admalam den jerwa tedak tamje kinjanım mirwa nittana te yondan chabar chanda kerana sanji koma tobarin gerari.
Therefore, in terms of the noble qualities and power of the Buddha's body alone, then it is taught in many of the sutras that just by meeting with, of course, clearly, if you were to actually be in the presence of the Buddha directly, it goes without saying, but just by meeting any image of the Buddha, or even having single-pointed faith and devotion, or even having a vision or having an experience in the dream state is something that will actually bring out the enlightened noble qualities within oneself.
me come back. Go Piajan no sir, can you return at night?
Re. Rarity.
Won't be gum. Yeah. Me have come out. Pato makes a cat yakadana. The Nishkoko again, the Naran Koko goodness.
I didn't know that I had a mic until just now, and then I heard it, and I realized it's down there.
Then he came as a pachangana, tap jumdan the song, that you took them could be. Shoot the honor. Tang Musa sorda than some give me capari, Nanso Kirgo cook. Then he's on the then, Serava, not Nepada. No ship you want us back. That Tobana, they're Mumaguberry.
Now, as for actually meeting with the teachings of the Buddha, of course, if we are fortunate to be able to actually read the syllables of the letters of the Buddha's teachings, the Dharma, then this is the best. It's inconceivable. It alone has the power to close the door to rebirth in the lower realms, and also just having contact with the syllables of the teaching of the Dharma can extend our life, give us the blessing of longevity and good health. And this goes without saying.
Then he check and dandy Jumdan the Sonla, Musing and be Kara Medana. Then if you hadn't read the glass of Bartavazina, Jumdan the Chuto, Sumi, Tilkap, Tisotatan before the Nanda, Tonda, Timo Cornija de Tuna Teona, they rumble Motaban Corridingly, Tarin Gerard.
So, even when we think about if we don't have the opportunity to meet directly with the teachings, just by having some kind of a contact with the syllables, we have these benefits. Let's look at the benefits that those birds and deer have at the time of a Dharma teaching. Now, of course, they can't really meet directly with the teachings or read the syllables, but if they hear the sound of a conch being blown or a drum that is being beaten at the beginning of a teaching or at any time during the teaching, then by hearing that sound, also it is taught clearly that in a very short time they will be freed from that lower stage of rebirth and will gradually be led to liberation.
Hey, Mazapachangana, tap Jumdan the Tiki on the den, Chestavijanana. That Simjin Ririk and the Refuge, Jumdan dinner, Sevi Tiki Chimboda, Trinity Tilly Mayover, Simjagaton Zapari. Sevi Naji Chimbu Guni, Simjagaton Zapati, Tilly Mayover.
And as for the noble qualities of the mind, the power of the Buddha's mind, then individual sentient beings actually receive on their capacity, according to their sensibility, the Buddha's teachings and his loving kindness and his wisdom knowledge in terms of its expression as miraculous activity. And so we can understand that the qualities of the Buddha's mind are expressed by his expression of miraculous activity, which is able to reach all of the living beings according to their levels of sensibility.
When that Gamsu Chimbonan are lab may pity cups to Savani to the man. Great Davian the Jumdan Digana Simjan Tamshana, Tonzakitena, that Yaru Tanyus of Pity cups to Savani to Jamari.
For example, it is impossible for there not to be a wave that arises or wells forth from the great ocean. And so just like that, it is impossible that the miraculous activity of the Buddha will not be able to reach and accomplish the purpose of all sentient beings.
Then Sanji the Rishavan Namlan and Sanji yet to the same Jagaton Zakiri. Fianchu Sami the Rishavan Namlan and Fianchu Sami number Ton Zakiri. Then Yantu the Ran Sanji, that the Rishavan Namlan and Yantu the Ran Sanji number and the same Jagaton Zakiri.
So from the field of enlightened awareness, the Buddhas send forth boundless intentional manifestations in order to tame the minds of beings according to their needs and sensibilities. And so if a Buddha needs to manifest as a Buddha then he will, she will, as a bodhisattva, as a shravaka, a hearer, as a pradika, or a solitary realizer, on whatever level is deemed necessary in order to tame the minds of beings according to their needs.
Then 좀 된 니가나 다 마마인 빈도바 피알라는 피아르트 레덕즈트 식니라 식니즈트르나 데 심진 마우 넘버트리야 심진기 돈 자바리
Shidrak. Any? Two. And even the Buddhas manifest in other realms as spirits and entities, as birds, as wild animals, and as animals that live underwater.
데 마즈파장가나 다 르당 넉서당 존샹라서 바남니잖아 다 담비 춤종하다 대덕 담제그 심전라 판데 허드메파 베르나 심전라 돈자키리
In forests, in jungles, in the wild, for the purpose of bringing the Dharma to those places, for the purpose of benefiting the sentient beings, the living beings who dwell there, the Buddhas manifest there as well, and the Dharma is spread on in those places according to the needs and sensibilities of the beings who dwell there.
대티나나 다 심전리리 흔데 좀던디기 티 딱버 겐데 닌랑섬 산랑섬데 심전텔라나 판법드 비탑서 대 공원 심전텔라 티 딱데 판법드 그메기스 스트는 말이
Therefore, it should be clearly understood that for the benefit of each and every sentient being, in order to establish them in peace and happiness, throughout the day and night, unceasingly, 3 times in the day, 3 times in the night, which means unceasingly, the Buddha always understands the needs of sentient beings and tries to benefit them and accomplish their purpose in whatever way is deemed necessary.
디나 답좀던디라 가와당 땅와키 구비김선 때는 때리
So this is the reason why we should feel attracted to the Buddha, and when we think of the Buddha, we should have great joy and gratitude.
대야나 다 공급니 비측들 하량 꺄르두이다 랑식죠
And so to imbue that within you, again, I would like to say a few words.
돈베 상지세기디 다 심전난 밤데란 거 비탑 마음킨나야나 답 좀던디라 가지고 말 나는 좀던디 괜느리
That the Unsurpassed Teacher, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, absolutely knows the methods which bring benefit to all sentient beings. It is impossible that the Buddha would not know this.
좀던디금 킨카 제족다 좀던디라 세비냐지 쳔보지 메다야나 다 드셔나마 람톤기 말다 좀던디라 세비냐지 쳔보야 요바리
So, realizing then that the Buddha is totally omniscient in knowing the methods to benefit beings, if he didn't have loving kindness and compassion for them, he wouldn't show them those methods. And so he must have loving kindness and compassion as well.
Then 좀던디람 킨바다 세와 요토 생겨 셈전난 밤디드비 님트도 메나 좀던디 셈전가 톰드기 말이다 좀던디라는 대 토바 메피 니바야 요끼리
And even though he possesses omniscience and loving kindness and compassion, if he didn't have power or potency, he wouldn't be able to apply those methods in such a way that they would actually accomplish the purpose of others. And so he also has power, the full potency, to be able to actualize his full potential in terms of methods.
디나는 띠르타빔 켄센 닉섬가 요단 단 렌다당 잡아되는 좀던디 코나라 요끼리면 젠직tin 감거나 강라야 요끼 말이
It is only the Buddha in all of this world who possesses this type of unsurpassed and unrivaled omniscience, compassion, and power. There is no one else in this world who can equal him.
디나 답삼바 나르트 pobla 집거 똑쇼지기다 Kubi nana nyang me pada. Go nana lapa me pi kanzo zigna maqtmen. Jifet zigna chumden dila tat tamamen ki chemical ordinary.
And so, except for people who have no heart in their body or no brain in their head, everyone else would have to have this type of attraction to Lord Buddha Shakyamuni as the unsurpassed teacher.
Teni ta chula ngamidina ndopi tapat ket gubari.
Now then, the second level of faith is the development of the faith that attracts one to the Dharma, which is to want to emulate.
Ta chula ngamidina ndopi tapat cheyalina tap chumden diga songwa bjenda. Chumden diga songwi chutina ta nyamselin de kaparchanzi ke gubari.
Here, one must come to know about the Dharma as the teachings of the path, which do lead to the state of enlightenment, the state of liberation. And one must be able to develop a very specialized level of faith towards the Dharma teachings.
Ta chumden diga songwi chute chirtan nyamselin gunana tar gevi shik tamshadna dub goni. Milki shik tamshadna fang goni.
If we want to practice the Buddha Dharma purely, then we must understand that all that is wholesome and virtuous should be accomplished, and all that is unwholesome and non-virtuous must be abandoned.
Tinana tar gevi shikte kangla jenena ndorna teni simchen tamjela ta no sif sababe par ria fiamba nyangche komandona gevi shikte.
When we think about that which falls into the category of being wholesome or virtuous, in brief, it would be the consideration of never wanting to harm any other living being for any reason, and developing love and compassion for each and every one of them.
Simchen sugmana ramdang selayana tap zambangan ba juratsabi litelan mergiva jifyawari.
And towards any being, whether they are high, middle, or low in terms of one's perspective, to have negative thoughts towards them or to actually show some physical adversity or aversion towards them is considered to be unwholesome or non-virtuous.
Teni simjela ta nopa memshipi tsirteya jumdan digi chutela gevjung chu jiji sonopari.
So, therefore, in order to be able to abstain from harming sentient beings, the Buddha taught the 10 virtues.
Teni ta gevjung chutela gitan jumdan digi jinjik tsamalar gevjung zendi ta tsami yang nyamsilengi chu namba vjoneri.
Excuse me, the Buddha taught 4 chushi, the Buddha taught 4 ways through which wholesome accumulations occur, and these 4 should be practiced by all of those true followers of the Buddha.
Teni kanjena ta choyang lar matro reakshiri sarar bokuna harar bokunya namar.
So, the first of the 4 is to never retaliate if someone abuses you.
Kiyang lar makshi senjer janga ranga chirki ngabayina te lar kiyan namari.
Dangpoti.
Saran zangna haran zangnya namari.
So, di dang.
Niba me.
Oh, tani dangpoti.
Dhamma troya tamkas. Somebody has to retaliate. If somebody needed
Physically, not to be bad. So the first one is to never retaliate. This is more of a verbal exchange, and so secondly, physically, if someone physically tries to abuse you, you would not physically retaliate.
Teni dakyan lar mardak zendi sarab gyabna dog gyabna iha gyabna zam gyabna te chomden digi jinji tagmazi nizon te lan kayan namari.
Sumba.
Somebody.
And then the third one is to just remain patient without having any kind of a response. Even if they throw a stick, a club, or a stone at you, no matter how badly they physically abuse you, to have no response at all, no negative retaliation.
Teni samdwala han samam dzendi chu hangan mangan chu kirge zilngan gemit chu kirgenin chu shofchay tatim na bar na zokum samdna halate tslan zogona samdnya namar.
Do young care somewhere?
Someone is saying something like
Physical abuse, I mean verbal abuse. Insulting, right? Related to relation, do you have a coma?
No, saying that you are
Right. Do you have a cigarette? And the fourth is if you are being verbally abused to the point where you're being insulted, like someone is saying to you, you're a thief, you're a robber, you're a liar, whatever kind of negative language that they are saying, you would not have any kind of verbal remark.
Kedangar gerka yan lavjin jonda ba karang ka dang zen ta lagba keka gerka chona tar yan lavjin kon jonda nika chedwa tarang len kon
whenever we regain something like some profit and a winning thing being like a victory, the thing different to some other people, then some whatever we're losing things and those things we take over.
Because the Buddha taught that if you actually, even though in this kind of a situation it appears as though you are the loser, you are actually the winner. To abstain from retaliating in this way makes one the victor.
Dina ta chumden di gave you a chujo the young tabazing amsel tanan ta chumden di jir ang tangozen tin yamsem meleni tap chumden di jinji kan zagan da ka zamse gezeni ton gana gave you a chujo ka gelamenan telap chumden di jinji kan nyang zamse gemi jinji nam tak mari.
So therefore, really, someone who is able to practice these four purely is really considered to be a true follower of the Buddha. And if they're not practiced, if one is easy to react and shows this type of retaliation, then although one may consider oneself to be a follower of the Buddha, from the point of view of true quality or true meaning, one is not, because these four are extremely important.
Damn, that's just a good guzina. When I can't rank Pazakarano Pacana, Tela, Tajerdan Ki Kalarondan. The tea gin the vision of Chiberkan Magicana, Aranglan, 10 Nishan Kan Mivian than a Tagno Pacana. Tela Bukian Maria, when Tam Mazic of Unit Katina, Viti Malachir, no Pacariana, Viti Jerdan Marita, move with the Namjin and Alitoringa someday. Great avian than a Ranga Hara Pambertons of Serrano Pacan, then the Namjik Nana, Yumuang and Bandilitori Tavio of some Yaji de Ater Gomgori.
So how do you actually meditate in this way? How can you put these four into practice? Of course, if someone is trying to harm you and inflict harm upon you in any of these ways, naturally anger will arise. But one has to try to, think into that and realize what the true situation is at hand, and to develop a sense of love and compassion for the individual who is doing this based on their own ignorance. And one has to be able to have a broad enough scope to see ahead, to see what the results will be if one in turn reduces oneself to their level. And so, to use a good example, it would be like the way that a mother usually thinks about her offspring, her son or her daughter. No matter how much her son or daughter are abusing her, then still she would love them and have compassion for them, even though it may be a difficult situation. And so in this way we should try to practice to have that kind of love and compassion for others who are harming us.
Tomargu dagla niba kafse tamsik mevyenda daga serana tatek nopa chebo dak ngodok choton janzina tela yerdan markini macha tati digba tamchata diga yodo jong migela memberche sambi sabab zongote achet gubari.
And then it can be taken even further as one develops in this practice of having a sense of love and compassion for the object then if one goes deeper in the practice, one would actually be able to feel, let them harm me, no matter what they do to me. How much they abuse me, it simply doesn't matter. They could even cut off my head. Because I actually hope that all of their suffering that they are experiencing could ripen upon me, so that they don't have to experience this suffering. This is how one should think.
Then ta nyeri da nyeri sam kan nagarang sam dina da tela da ta yer da ke kala ronda to mar gur ger kap mo da kem goji ta tsingan da samdr ter ta hina yana ta devjen da tela gaftu hin harati yondal jud gubari
So this is how we should be able to practice with different individuals, abstaining from allowing anger to arise and be expressed. But all the more so, we should try to extend this in a broader sense to the way that we feel about situations in the world and towards other countries and other races of people and so forth.
They mind by really hundred members kedan. Ta rangla nipchu number not of Hinayana. Tela yetang merkia tam the mazat, tela keep kerda, tani kiana, chumdan the tambadi toti.
So even though it is extremely difficult to be disrespected by others, no matter how much disrespect is shown to one, the Buddha has always taught that not only should we never retaliate with anger, we should show respect back to that individual. We should show honor and respect no matter what.
Dina that chumdan diga chutena, dan seva me pada. Jen la pamba bajik dibin simit, jiv lamzan konarize gubijumsa ya tagu chadneri.
This is why the Dharma, which is the teaching of the Buddha, is a teaching that promotes the practice of never harming others and always doing what one can to be of benefit to others as the main focus of the entire path. And so this is the point that's being brought out here. One has to take it literally. So maybe you're thinking, oh yes, this doctrine sounds very good. In fact, the principles are excellent, but no one can really practice this. This is something that is really far too difficult for an ordinary person to be able to do. Because it is a difficult practice, which is very true, even for myself. I am a Tibetan, I'm a monk, in fact I'm a Lama, and even I find it something very difficult to actually practice purely. So this is why each and every one of us have to practice the Dharma of Lord Buddha in gradual stages of development. Like, for example, for those good lamas in Tibet, even at the cost of their life, they would never take the life of another living being, nor would they ever consider to steal or embezzle the possessions of someone else.
ta mari rambavjan the flavan dorna simjan lagno bi live fi tavla son kori.
Now then, let's take all of you. Maybe from this day onward, if you were to take a vow that from this day onward, I will no longer take the life of any living being, I will no longer take the possessions or steal from anyone else, take that which is not given to me, I will no longer intentionally harm any other living being. This might be difficult for you to do, to actually take that vow and keep it. But perhaps you have the aspiration to want to be able to do that, which means that you can begin to train and develop so that this is something that will become possible.
Inap jumdan diktam badela jalan sever gevjung mayin of zindir jan simjan zigana tap samba nganda jora sabmos godna tip jumdan dik jin dik mahsabani min song jumdan digana tat klik jadak songanir.
If you in the garden, if someone is harming other being, then it is not follower of Buddhism.
Yes. However, it should be understood that according to the Buddha's doctrine then, because the principal focus is to never harm any other beings, if someone sort of is said to be practicing or claims to be practicing Buddhism or the teachings of the Buddha but is harming others, then this is really to contradict the doctrine and they're not really following the Buddha's teachings.
Dinana tat sami ab jumdan diga rang sem na yonsog der jaji sem na tingmifsha ndan san ji tambayin zer rang sem de urmari tonjo mai sem de maktijo telana tarani kan ni ba septic dadi kan tela lab gonri.
And this is why, too, it is said, and I quote, that one should always try, as followers of the Buddha, one should always try to tame one's own mind and to never disturb the mind of any other being. And so this is something that we all have the potential to do. And so gradually we must try to accomplish this, the taming of our own mind and to never disturb the minds of others.
Dinana tar rang sem de chirgu tongo samna rang gida tap jumdan digi chudang mumtun bi jerdang ngambarki onan drag ndochik ngambarki onan drag jan chaktok teni jalni ngalak samgi ngarger der tayu samba ngambade ke ondi ta lamsan te ke ono de shigavjak shin tan der tayu to ngambade ke ganjok menyan samda de keron transhik zone shinche der tayu tongan merkeno ta lamar komchik simgi shingi laptok soruf sama komchik sim laksora chini sinde gubere.
So how can this be done? For instance, when we are experiencing extreme upheaval of conflicting emotions, like a strong upheaval of anger or desire or jealousy or pride, that mind which thinks I am better than others, and these types of concepts that become overpowered in our mind, we should immediately recognize them with our awareness and recognize that this in fact is an upheaval of the conflicting emotions, which is something detrimental, unwholesome, and will bring about these unwanted results. And so with mindfulness, we should try to allow it to be pacified. And if it's difficult for us to do that, we should pray to the 3 jewels of refuge to bless us so that we will have the potential to be able to put these conflicting emotions to rest.
Ta janana rang liki chopa ngambada ngaktam natsel ngambada sem ji tantok ngambakar janji sem de tiban generi.
Now in terms of disturbing the minds of others, this occurs when we enact unsuitable physical behavior, when we speak negative words or say things to others which may harm them, or have negative thoughts.
Dinana ta rang jang sem tikepka fiamshut ngambade rang gelam jon yonir kamna teni zon de rabna nstavani spang of targoni karte tezamani na rang jopa ke aw ngapchum dandiga jisik bazire ta tar ni janji sem tibilir ka de liga ta shinjut nan ta savani shed manim samgi teni zon te de ta damjak tan bori fi kom smak sora ande gubare.
So of course it's best to be able to eliminate any type of conduct which disturbs the minds of others from the root. But if that's not possible, and if it happens that one has actually engaged in some activity, physically, verbally, or mentally, which has which has brought some distress or misery to someone else, then one should immediately try to feel a sense of true remorse and regret, and remind oneself that, for instance, I am a follower of the Buddha. This type of conduct is totally unsuitable. Now I truly regret this, and in the future I will try to abstain from doing this again, and to pray to the three jewels of refuge to bestow blessings.
Dinana ta tirtavina simjalla nopa mafkir rank somebody ftona chik gubayo nerzena ta senderiana seranga nadmi pa longshi chiwa zobji zangwa ta jangi kurgubin sekirwala sobi yonan chikh na mawoj gitim jongire.
Now, if you were to ask, well, what are the benefits of actually being careful in terms of these points, these practices, to abstain from these unwholesome accumulations of harming others? The benefits are that in this very life, one will experience longevity, good health, increase of merit, endowments, happiness, and so forth.
Then in the Sangha Community to bring your alasobi, that dinger tamchet tamteri, they are Phuntsok by top giri.
And not just only in this life, but in the future lifetime, one will be reborn in the realm of great bliss, Amitabha's pure realm, the Buddha fields. And these are places where the suffering of cyclic existence is non-existent. And gradually one is able to achieve the status of perfect enlightenment and never experience any kind of suffering again.
Dina Jundan the Somi Chunde, Nick chicken Absalana, Nick Korayana, Dave Divadan, Dingerdan Target, Chunk chicken ni, Tirtavina Yamsalana, Kemsan come with the Divadan Dangeri, Tonjir chicken Namgana, Tirtavi Sanji Chuni Yamsalana, Tonjir Teada, then it cut down Tartikan the Degeri. Then it get kept chicken Matsami under Tavi Yamsalana, get come Teana, that they are Phuntsok somebody. Tim wasn't Zalang Matsamayana. Dan Sanji give Tamban the Yamsi Lenji Chanzina, Dan Zamalan de of Dejan keep up Phuntsok Sobada, Dan Zama Jidi, Warunteam, Wondeker. Then is on theatre, Dinger Chang seems to say on me, partner, that dear give Phuntsok Sobam Jonjiri.
So you see, if just one person actually practices the Dharma of the Buddha, Lord Buddha's teachings, the holy Dharma, then that one person will be free from suffering and will experience peace and happiness. If one family practices the Buddha Dharma, that entire family will be free from suffering and experience peace and happiness. If one town practices the Buddha Dharma, the entire town will be free from suffering and experience peace and happiness. Ultimate, permanent peace and happiness. If the entire country is practicing the Buddha Dharma, the entire country will be fully endowed in this way. If the entire world practices the Buddha Dharma, if all the beings in the world were to practice the Buddha Dharma, everyone would be free from suffering and would experience permanent peace and happiness, which would be to establish peace in this world, a situation in this world where there was no longer any suffering and only happiness.
That Devam Joner Ganzigma, the Dinger Mam Joner Ganzimar Toman, dear Mam Joner Samdan, that Dinger Joner Sam say on your tricky mark.
Because everyone only wants to have peace and happiness. Nobody wants to suffer. If suffering does not occur, everyone is happy. There's not a single living being who wants to suffer.
Dinana, that's Simjan Tamchet, Deva to be tapped, Dinger Maper he be tapped in, Jumda Dixon the Conari.
Therefore, in terms of that, the point is that it is only the Buddha who has been able to teach the methods which can bring peace and happiness to all beings and free all beings from suffering.
Dinaya, Tamzi Batarda, some no jip the tangla. Takia Jigina, the top Jumdan de la Chundala, take Corina and young maidens in Lap Guna, Lapinana, Guna, Lapa made the castles in the Martman, top Jumdan de Chundala, Mubama teaches 7 Yonjamari.
If you think carefully about this, about the attributes and the qualities, the unrivaled qualities of the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, then except for someone who doesn't have a heart in their body or a brain in their head, everyone else would be attracted to the Buddha with this type of strong faith.
Dinana, that's the Jigme, Tarayan, the Chidan. Women young the tongue of Jum than the Tambandala, Metat Padamu because of not so what Musayan, let me put on young meat poser. That is the Tanyata Doggery, Dr. Roden, Donnery, work Zenry, young meat po. I let me po, yeah.
So in Tibet, we actually have this saying, which is why I'm repeating this, because it really applies to someone who, in fact, had examined or investigated the qualities of the Buddha Dharma again and again, and still doesn't have faith, still unable to develop faith. Then they're like someone who is heartless or brainless.
Yeah, Tina Kokina and young men that don't go on a leper made in the Tese and Maritana. That Jumden the Gingers of Katina, Dar, Hell was a Kokina and the Taylor young there in the Hajan book at the Mari. Kalapina and Jona, Jum and Timuyan, no Taylor Lapazir Sibuchi at the Mari. So you can run and do in the Lamta, young Tabazina, Taylor, young Kalapa Akazeni.
Now, this is really not to be taken literally, like those followers of the Buddha have nice hearts in their bodies or brains in their head. But it means that those who are able to really follow the teachings accordingly so that they themselves are establishing true peace and happiness, then they are likened to individuals who are complete, that their lives are complete in this way.
Da rangin yamsıv lan ki çüte mano razı şir gonde mena. Da kü nyazık şi, ndrozık şi, tanzık şi. Gombazı konşini samsık kına kör nyayo tangla zeri sıkçı kı tanyin dağcı mari.
But if you want to be someone with a heart and a brain, then you should practice the Buddha Dharma without any mistake. If you know how to sleep, if you know how to walk around, if you know how to eat and put clothes on, you still don't qualify as someone with a brain or a heart. So if one has a strong aspiration towards the Buddha Dharma, then this is equivalent to the second level, the development of the second level of faith, which is a faith that wishes to emulate. Now, the third level of faith is called fully convinced or irreversible, and this is likened to the way that one feels towards the third jewel of refuge, the Sangha. Now, the Sangha means the spiritual community who are the followers of the Buddha. And what that really means, that primarily those who are followers of the Buddha are people who are concerned with only employing the methods which bring benefit to self and others.
Simjel nopa mekirwa takba mambi lugdan. Simjel nopa mekirni masa simjel pamba deba takba chembu lugdan. Simjel pamba deba deya. Tar gyachi woda. Kasak me per nirter deba sang durji takbilam yamsilembi. Tar genden tela riksmo kiri.
Those who are followers of the Buddha in this world of ours these days fall into three categories. Those who follow according to the lesser spiritual pursuit of the Hinayana, who mainly practice the abstinence or abstaining from harming others intentionally. Those who practice on the level of the greater spiritual pursuit, or the Mahayana, who in addition to that practice the methods which bring benefit to others. And those who practice on the mantra pursuit, or the vehicle of Vajrayana, who incorporate the lower two practices into the employment of methods which are not difficult and which bring results swiftly and extensively.
Dina Tirtavi, Tapan became Samiana. That Simjela Panbab because of the Ginba, the Mushiviana, that Dilan Yichi Merki because Rayan, say on your take about.
Now, if you meet with someone who is an individual who accomplishes the practice of bringing benefit to other beings, and if you recognize this quality in somebody, that there's someone who actually is able to help others and who is engaged in that type of practice, then you would feel a sense of confidence in that person.
Kulla troubo go be want fina chu troubo de chota ngusam trapi ni kabna yana kor gawa truwa kurtu hednes skogdi yana kulla tuba deni zonte ta tirta yi panchi to hednes deni zonte dena ta kulla na fya ganchi ta yana pamba tibi troubo de la kyo yichi ogira troubo khaji kana ko ngurti na to kai koni mat deni zonte de kulla no pa na so ko tabla so bi troubo de la.
For example, if you have a friend, and this friend is someone who is beneficial, benefit to you, who is beneficial to you, who shows you respect, who is a true friend, then this is someone that you will develop confidence in. You will be attracted towards, and you will have confidence and trust in. Whereas if you have a friend who harms you, who abuses you, who disrespects you, it'll be very difficult for you to have confidence or trust in this friend. And this is the reason why the fully convinced faith is the level of faith that is experienced when we experience devotion in the third jewel of refuge, the Sangha.
Tina, that comes to some good and dirty bad zamshit to Fianeri. Tina, kin about Samaya, that comes to some like Gazayak. Of course.
Now, I have given a very brief explanation of the qualities of the three jewels of refuge. I would like to ask you, do you feel a sense of faith or devotion in the three jewels? Are you attracted to them? Those of you who like the three jewels, raise your hand.
Yeah.
Those who don't like the three jewels, raise your hand. Very good. Now everyone likes the three jewels.
Timru Jalan Sera may be Tambi Chudi Yamsilangeda. Chudi Yatabar Yamsilang, took again the Batam Cheta. This Dr. Drogana. That's Sanji Chudi Yamsilin Samji. Damjet the Gilla Keeper Zochik.
Therefore, from now on, from this moment onward, and throughout all of your lifetimes, I would like you to make the aspiration and the commitment that you will always be attracted to the unsurpassed and fully endowed teacher who possesses the most exalted qualities of any teacher in this world, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, and that you will listen to the Dharma teachings and bring them into your life and practice them to the best of your ability, and that you will always befriend the Sangha community and choose them as your first choice in terms of companionship and friendship in this world. And in this way you will be truly living out this feeling of devotion that you have in the three jewels of refuge as your absolute objects of refuge. With this type of devotion developed within your mind stream, please bring your palms together at your heart and repeat after me.
Lama la gyabsum sho.
Lama la gyabsu chiwo.
Sangi la gyabsum sho.
Sangye la gyapsu chiwo.
Shula Kyavsum Cho,
Chula gyapsu chiwo.
Gendon La Kyavsum Cho,
Genden la gyapsu chiwo.
Lama La Kyavsum Cho,
Lama la gyapsu chiwo.
Sanki La Kyavsum Cho,
Sangye la gyapsu chiwo.
Shula Kyavsum Cho,
Chula gyapsu chiwo.
Gendon La Kyavsum Cho,
Genden la gyapsu chiwo.
Lama La Kyavsum Cho,
Lama la gyapsu chiwo.
Sanki La Kyavsum Cho,
Sangye la gyapsu chiwo.
Shula Kyavsum Cho,
Chula gyapsu chiwo.
Gendon La Kyavsum Cho,
Genden la gyapsu chiwo. Now, all of you have received the Refuge vows. From this moment onward, you may call yourself a Buddhist. And from this moment onward, whatever activities that you want to accomplish, whether they are spiritual or of this world, you will be able to accomplish them in a way that you have not been able to before. And not only that, those humans and those negative spirits who do cause harm on other levels will no longer be able to harm you, because you will be protected by the 3 jewels from this moment onward. Now, as long as you don't ever fall under the power of incorrect view, if you maintain your vows and your commitment to the 3 jewels of refuge, as you've stated it here today, then in this and in all future lifetimes, you will no longer take rebirth in the 3 lower realms. And so, if you maintain this commitment and promise in an unchanging way, then you have truly, on this occasion, you have truly accomplished the purpose of a precious human rebirth. So, now, as I look around, I think that we have a mixed crowd. There are many of you here who are Native Canadians, and there are many who are Native Americans who have moved to Canada. At any rate, I do feel that today, for many of you here, this is the most important and valuable thing that you've ever done in your life. Because whether you're from the United States or Canada, I think it's probably the same, that except for Saturday and Sunday, all of the other time in your life is more or less spent in the pursuit of getting enough food to eat and clothes to wear, and to actually be able to just simply survive in this world, to maintain yourself and to accumulate some type of wealth or position. Young Kirsugunan. So except for what you've been able to accomplish in terms of your goals of having enough food to eat, enough clothing to wear, and a certain state of status or enjoyment in this life, probably you haven't been able to accomplish too much more than that. This is why I made the statement that today you have done something more meaningful than you've done in your entire life, because of the benefits that you will derive from what you just did. Now, many of you here probably are already Buddhists, long-time Buddhist practitioners, that's for sure. And some of you here today probably were not Buddhist before you came, and now you are. And now you're new Buddhists with an appreciation for the special qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And so you are able to have confidence and trust in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and that is why you went ahead and took the vows. And so I feel that what's happened here this afternoon makes my journey to Canada something meaningful. And I also know for sure that it's something meaningful for you. And this is why I say that this is a fully endowed occasion. So the training that you must now try to engage in as best as you can includes at all times and in all situations, in having taken refuge in the Buddha, to make prayers to the three jewels of refuge, to help you and assist you on the path, to take them as your source of refuge. In having taken refuge in the Dharma, you should try your best not to ever harm any other sentient being intentionally. And in having taken refuge in the Sangha, you should try to have respect and confidence in those followers of the Buddha.
Dina, that deranga teni lirim de gobru kepa putena dar nyangje dan herb lifsambi shute shotzi na teni yigina de kodak dina ni herb da nyangje de an da chongchong za main bar da sanji gi chudan ndem da de keran ke nambala pamba gechim bozum jong shetana dektam shetti hibai.
Now, although the subject today was the subject of compassion and wisdom, in one way I feel that I've taken that and I've expanded it to encompass a teaching that gives you an ability to appreciate and understand all of the Buddha's teachings in one kind of an explanation, which will benefit you in a way that could not be equaled by just giving only a talk on compassion and wisdom. And so therefore I chose to expand this and to elaborate on a general subject of the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha, which includes compassion and wisdom. And I feel that this has surely been of more benefit to you on this occasion.
The Mengiana, that did take Kenambala, Tikajang towards like Marta. 60 Yapi Yandan, Kenambala, and Dipship Gunda, Pambam Young Tamships on was written. They can be Tingams of Tiri.
And I want you to know too that I don't consider myself to be very clever or skillful with words. I have kind of a style of just being honest and direct. And I felt that by really being even more so that way today, that there was a purpose here, because I did it so that I could give you something that would be of benefit to you in this and all future lifetimes.
다 때는 때랑 리름 때 잠스긴더니 상년다 안안일라서 빌리름이야나 다 거북인데 kir나비 주무 키 리름 람란 직바름 좋죠.
So for today, I will conclude the public section of the public talk, which is the public discussion in my different teachings that I will give here. Starting tomorrow, there will be more specific topics and teachings that I will be giving, and so I hope to see you then.